My name is Michael McClintock, and today is December the 9th, 2021. I'm speaking with a good friend of mine, Mr. Hoang Lam, who is also the host of the Defining Moments podcast. Of course, we are recording this here in the great state of Oklahoma. Hoang, good evening, sir.
Hey man, appreciate you having me on, brother.
Most definitely. And I'm going to take about 10 minutes of your time roughly to just kind of pick your brain. But can you tell me about someone who had a big influence in your life?
Yeah, man, it's definitely I guess two people I call them as ones would be my parents. They had a huge impact on my life, my upbringing, and a lot of the way I think and how I act.
Very nice. And, and I obviously know some of the stories about your parents. I know it's going to be longer than the 10 minutes, but what would you tell me about some of the most important lessons that your parents taught you?
Always be honest. Don't forget where you came from. Um, Trust is earned. Loyalty is super important in our culture, our family, and I sense that from you too. I think that's why I feel like that's probably why we're really good friends. And so yeah, just don't forget where you came from. Be respectful. Earn the trust. Earn the respect, and just make sure you're loyal. Keep your word.
I enjoy that. Of course, we don't see that much anymore. Not so much, not referring just to politics, but just life in general. I don't think we see that as often and much like we used to um, growing up. But I know it's a probably good question, and I guess some people nowadays you probably don't get asked that much or even get talked about it. But can you describe one of your most happiest moments in your life so far?
Yeah, it was when uh, when my wife said yes
Very
to
nice.
uh, me asking her to marry her in 2000 man 17 February. Yeah, changed my life, man.
Obviously for the better as well, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%.
Of course, from her saying yes to, of course, the wedding, the day of the wedding, so on and so forth. What are some of your proudest moments, and why does it make you feel proud?
Yeah, one of the proudest moments was when I gave the a little toast at our wedding, and I did it in English and I did it in Vietnamese, and I felt like I was proud because I was able to remember the things that my parents taught me and raised me, and to be able to speak the Vietnamese language as fluently as I do my obviously my English. It was a proud moment. Other proud moments would be coaching boys competitive soccer. And when you get a chance to have that type of a platform, it builds you. And what was awesome about my coaching experience is the fact that these parents and the kids had no idea who I was at the time, and I had no idea who they were. However, through tryouts and a year together with these kids at a time, we built a level of respect and trust. And with that, it became more about life. Yeah, you want to win, you want to be competitive, and we were that. However, what was more important is the friendships that we formed, and I'm still friends with quite a few of the guys. I actually became ordained minister over the last summer and did officiate one of my boys' weddings. So that was a very proud moment for me. And then recently, coaching a girls recreational team. Never coached
Very
girls
nice.
before. Told them that I've never coached girls. They knew that. I coach in one gear. It's fast, it's hard, and it's competitive. And so they got the best version of me as far as all the experience I've accumulated. And for them to trust me, it's like, man, it's at a point where they probably didn't know this, but I needed it more
Mhm.
from them, and they gave me that opportunity to do what I did. So yeah, that was a proud moment too. It's just recent.
I like that. And of course, I'm sure it was a huge proud moment for you, just in general. So I'm sure the challenges were rewarding in the end. And of course, moving along. Of course, we always talk about this. At lunch or whatever. How would you like to remember? How would you like to be remembered? Um, Years down the road, or even currently still now.
Man, that's a good question. I often thought about that question because that sounds like a question I ask my guest on the show. And it just, I don't know if I want to be remembered. I feel like the coolest thing is if when your kids mentions your name,
Hmm.
or your friends mention your name in a situation where, like, man, hey, I remember when Wong would do this, or I remember when Coach would say that. That's probably the most impactful because that's how I remember my coaches and then my mentors. Is I remember when Coach Pavarnik said this. I remember when Coach Jack Johnson said, you know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
yeah, I appreciate the question.
Hey, my pleasure. And it's one that I think a lot of people I know, or right like with my dad, for instance, it's one that I've always asked myself. It's the question when, I'm prepping and all this stuff for my dad's stuff down the road. And it's like, how would you like to be remembered? I think a lot of times we often more times than not that we fail to really just sit back and just think because people don't realize and we don't realize for our own selves is our actions and our words and everything else down the road, it actually does make an impact, the good or the bad, one way or another. It's going to make an impact one way, and hopefully it's a good way.
Right. No, you're 100% spot on.
So of course, years and years down the road, but for your great great grandchildren listening to this years from now, Lord forbid, I don't know how that's going to happen, but we'll make it happen. Is there any wisdom that you would want to pass on to them, and also what would you want them to know?
Believe in yourself and know that you're going to regret it if you don't try it.
Boom. That's a good one. I like that. I like that, and I think, yeah, I like that one. This one's an awkward one. I don't like asking this quite a bit because it's not so much awkward. It's just it really odd to ask it, but I was just kind of curious. Final one. If this was to be our very last conversation, is there anything you would like to say to me, or how would you feel knowing that this was our last conversation?
Yeah, man, that you're going to get me in the feels, but man, I appreciate you for taking the time out to get to know me. I do. We hit it off on Twitter. I said we've got to meet. We met in person the first time we met on cue. The energy that I felt just tweeting you and texting
Mhm.
you was exact same energy I felt when we first met, and we gave a that bro hug, the handshake, and we said we got to do this again, and we've done many times. And so, if this was the last conversation, man, it's one that I definitely appreciate you. You giving me more confidence in myself to do what I do, as far as a person, as far as a podcast host, as far as doing things. You help validate my thoughts and my actions, and I appreciate that, man. Thank you for your confidence in me.
Hey, my pleasure. I love you, bro. And it's a question I was like, because my dad always said, I just don't want to put in certain situations because what if it actually became true? But nonetheless, I love you as a bro, dude, and appreciate it. Same as what you said, and it means a lot. Is our friendship from the first day, even leading up to now, and so much confidence you pour in, and even the wisdom. It's amazing. I truly appreciate it. Last question. I know it's our wrapping up, but Defining Moments podcast. You're the host of it. How did you come up with the name and the background of it?
Yeah. So the podcast itself was a challenge to do something you've never done before. And what do you feel like the outcome is going to be? And what happens when you lose motivation and inspiration to keep going? And I often talked about, especially the boys I coached after practice, I was like, man, these are moments. These are some of these defining moments. And either you define those moments or those moments define you. You can write those moments. You can have those moments be historical in your life. It's up to you to define them. Because if not, they're going to define you exactly how it's supposed to be. So that was the basis of it. It's like, these are your moments, man. You can attack them, define them, or let them define you. It's up to you. And so my wife and I started this podcast, and I talked to her about a name, and she's like, "You always talk about defining moments." And I was like, "Yeah, there are a lot of defining moments for us. You have plenty, you know."
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I love you too, brother. I appreciate you, man.
Ladies and gentlemen, a quick interview, but Hoang Lam, thank you, sir, for taking the time out of your schedule and enjoy the rest of your evening.
I mean, I appreciate you, brother.